And I was shocked by the scale of excitement about how fantastic this was going to be for financial markets. Maybe this is the time for one of those rare moments where the rest of the world's equity markets actually start to outperform the US. The most important thing to me is the quality of the leadership and what you can perceive of their ability to adapt and deal with change. Because the one thing we know for sure, that change is always going to be happening. And I was shocked by the scale of excitement about how fantastic this was going to be for financial markets. I was shocked. And maybe it's...
Well, logic had gone out the window as far as you were concerned.
Well, I'm sufficiently open-minded that I thought, well, what am I missing? So I thought about it a lot. And I do get the regulatory thing. And if he's in a position to end up offering a lot of tax incentives and lower taxes, which seems to me, another world at the moment, but I can get that. But for people to completely ignore what he said he was going to experiment with on tariffs and effectively dismantling the whole post-war system, which despite the BS, has served the United States spectacularly well.
At the moment, investors must be thinking, what on earth is going on, mustn't they? What do you think about what Trump's doing right now?
I just messaged a good friend of mine on the way here that a future generation will look back at this time and think, really? Did somebody actually really vote for this guy? It's astonishing. And I'm sufficiently in the dreaded school of social science economics, social science.
Got it.
It's very hard to explain some of the early optimism that a lot of people in the States had about Trump coming back.
Well, they believed the gospel, didn't they? I mean,
I don't know what they believed. I really don't know.
The only thing I would say, and it's not, I'd say it's right or wrong, but it's a fact. He did say that the world had been extracting the migrants vigorously out of the United States for several years, and it had to stop. What happened?
No, he told us.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess if you want to give him credit so far,
don't, but
he is delivering big time, or trying to, on everything he said he was going to do. What is going to be fascinating, in my view, in the years to come, because it's not based on any rational premise, what these very angry, left behind people in the States are going to do when it doesn't deliver anything that he's kidded them it will.
Especially Pennsylvania. I mean, that's...
Well, there's endless places.
And
I'm quite involved in my day life. In a modest way, I'm quite involved in aspects of the same sort of underlying long-term issues in my role chairing the Northern Powerhouse Partnership and Northern Gritstone. So I spend a lot of time in tough parts of the North. And so I get the fact that aspects of globalization may be guilty of some of the role as to why so many places haven't benefited from the past 30, 40 years. But the remedy that he's pursuing is probably going to make it worse for those people, in my opinion. The G7 minus the US, let's call it the G6, put all them together, it's the same size as the States. So if they respond by, for example, you do what you want with tariffs, at the same time, we're going to actually reduce tariffs between ourselves and introduce genuine service, cross-border service trade, in another decade, like, what's that country called? And that's never going to happen.
You talked, when you were talking about asset management, about benchmarking. Mm-hmm. Now, I wouldn't ask you for specific recommendations because we're not licensed for that and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
But from your experience, what sort of things do you look for in a company that says, I think that company is going to be successful? What kind of things?
I do personally invest in a lot of startups myself for my sins, which I can't resist in joking. Quite a lot of the time, it seems like some close cousin of philanthropy because it's extremely risky stuff.
But you're not a philanthropic society, though.
I mean, I kind of do believe in profit with purpose
Yeah.
myself.
Well, it doesn't make you a bad bloke.
But I like to invest in things which I think are going to make a difference. And so your question's very valid to how I think. And, you learn through time, I think. I think the most important thing to me is the quality of the leadership and what you can perceive of their ability to adapt and deal with change. Because the one thing we know for sure, that change is always going to be happening, whether it's good or bad or perceived, we don't know. I think that's really important. I've invested in back to a number of people that have had incredible ideas, but when they're thrown a curveball out of left field, they've not been able to cope with it, and it's taken them down a very wrong path, and the business has gone bust. Even though with better adaptable leadership, they could have been unicorns. In fact, one of the ones I'm thinking about was on track to be a big success, but it just went horribly wrong because they couldn't deal with things that they hadn't anticipated. And so I think that is really important. And obviously, you got to have something which is pretty hard for others to compete with, which is easier said than done. But, if it's something that's too obvious, then, and especially if it starts to grow, and relevant to aspects of how current business happens, especially in the States, that, the bigger threatened version comes along and just buys you and takes you out. I think all those kind of things are pretty important.
Right from the top, from government, going all the way through to companies, to asset managers, we've suddenly gone risk averse. Yeah. And I think as a mentality, that's worrying.
I observed that in the discussions we've had with so many investors. That said, and I'm contradicting myself, we've got a pretty stellar list of investors, including quite a lot of well-known names in the big asset management world.
Well, you haven't exactly been wasting your time over the last 40 years. No. So you've put together, through your success and through your knowledge and through your, general know-how about things, how to actually set about this. But
I'm very passionate about it.